Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Caroline Carter. Thanks for being on the show, Caroline.
Thank you, Whitney. It's an honor.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you on the show, Caroline. And a little about Caroline. She's a founder and CEO of Done in a Day, a Washington, D.C. and Palm Beach Gardens, Florida-based home transition and move management company that has helped more than 2,000 families prepare their homes to sell for top dollar and avoid the chaos and stress of moving. We've moved numerous times, and it is stressful.
It's brutal.
No
it's
doubt
brutal.
about it. Her expertise was built through partnering with sellers and top producing real estate agents in one of the most expensive and competitive markets in the country. She has worked with everyone from the who's who in politics, business, and the media to busy families making a major life change. Caroline, welcome again to the show. To give the listeners a little more about who you are and what Done in the Day is and how and maybe what we'll move right into how that helps how you help families and also how it can help our listeners.
Sure. I think the biggest mistake that anyone who is embarking upon this total home transition process, meaning selling one home and moving to the next, is they underestimate the impact it's going to have on their families, physically, emotionally, and especially financially. And I look at myself as a truth teller with a strategic plan that helps these families to, minimize the anxiety associated with moving. Moving is one of the top 5 most stressful life events. Did you know that? Along with death, divorce, illness, and loss of a job. Yeah. So you never hear about moving when it goes well. People are like, no sweat. But you do hear about it when it goes sideways, don't you? Dinner party conversations, people are like, oh my God. So yeah, so that's my niche. And I help people to package their listing to sell and to create a successful move to the next home.
I know we hired somebody when we've sold numerous homes and things and, hired somebody to come in and help us to really decorate it and, what it should look like.
Sure.
And I mean, within just a matter of minutes, this person was able to add so much value, like things I wouldn't have ever thought of,
right.
Doing this in the backyard or doing that just to make it seem more homey or whatever, because I think we underestimate the emotional component of whether it's a home or even, one of our units that we're trying to rent, or like if we have a model unit for apartment community, it needs to feel like home when a potential tenant walks in.
Right. That's, it's interesting. I just gave a talk recently to relocation companies about the emotionality of moving and moving on. And you can't discount the emotion or the emotional component, especially in residential real estate, but it's also present in commercial real estate, where we as human beings are, in the danger of allowing our emotions to affect the decisions we make. And there are thousands of decisions that need to be made over the course of a transition. The other thing I think is really important is to understand how our emotional attachment to our home, we talk about selling a home. Well, really to sell it effectively, whether it's an apartment building or a home, you have to look at it as an asset and not with that emotional connection. And I think that a lot of sellers really get tripped up with that because they will make decisions based on how they feel. They're not able to look at it non-emotionally.
Right. Yeah. Especially buyers.
Yeah, exactly.
So many will buy or rent based on, I've heard a story. I heard the person say it specifically, but it's like because there was a light pole up front. Like that was one of this big thing. They really loved this, like that being out there. I don't know. It was something that simple, but
right. Sure. So it resonated emotionally with them, but that's something relatively simple. They were potentially looking for, other reasons to bolster their decision to buy. But essentially they made that decision within the first few seconds of walking into a home.
Right.
You mentioned that someone had helped you in one of the various properties that you had sold. And I think that there's a big difference between what I do and what a stager does, for instance. And people will say, well, Caroline, you're a stager, a home stager. That's someone that comes in and will either use your things or bring in furniture, accessories, artwork to create a visual that buyers will connect with. What I do in home transition is I do more of a deep dive into the interior and exterior facility itself. Again, whether it's multiple properties or one house, what I do is assess, where the delayed maintenance issues are and where we can create value add with fast, easy, and inexpensive updates. So that's a little bit different. Staging is important, but it's just one part of it. The most important part of my job, I think, is to understand exactly what that target buyer is looking for. Again, whether it's commercial or residential, what's the target buyer looking for today? Because they're very specific in terms of their, preferences and wants and needs. And how can I present a listing that's going to speak directly to that so that the value is apparent in every step they take? That's a little bit different. And then coming up with a strategic plan to maximize the asset by focusing the seller's time and attention and money, right? On making the right updates.
So, why don't you help us with that a little bit? I love that it's not just bringing in some furniture or putting some paintings on the wall, but you're a lot more in depth and you're really helping us see a bigger picture, right. And just the, what the tenant's seeing or the end buyer, one way or the other. But what are some of the top few updates that we need to be thinking about, as far as whether it's a home we're selling or whether it's an apartment, like a model unit,
Sure.
that I like to say, we have a model unit that tenants obviously can come see, and, and there's furniture in there's paintings there, those things, but maybe there's other updates that we need to consider. And what are some of those that you might recommend?
Sure. I think you have to start by understanding today's buyer. Okay. And if you understand today's buyer, you can speak to them. Today's buyer is extremely well-versed in the concept of perfection. They're on their phones all day long. They can show you within 2 seconds the perfect kitchen, the perfect bathroom, the perfect facade, the perfect paint color. So they are, overstimulated and underprepared for the market that they're going to enter into. Because what happens is their preferences, wants, and needs and their budget doesn't always correspond. So while they're going through this, honeymoon period of we're looking for the perfect this, they don't understand that ultimately with a reference to their budget, they're going to have to compromise, right? That's just the way it is. But when they start, there are certain things that are non-starters for them. And what any seller can do is look at the big picture, focus on the bricks and mortar first. Let's pretend there's nothing in the unit or any of the units or the house. You're going to start with the main, the main view. And what I mean by that is, start with paint, right? Paint is the best money you will ever spend to create the largest visual impact. Okay. You can also look at the quality of lighting. Sometimes we'll go into older homes and older buildings and the lighting is poor. I sometimes think of, the older laundry rooms in cellars, when you have the one bulb hanging over the washer and dryer. Okay. That is so 20 years ago. People don't want creepy spaces. People want adequate lighting. The third is really carpeting and or tile. So those three, paint, lighting, and carpeting or tile is critical. As it relates to a home, you want to make sure that wall-to-wall carpeting, if it's covering hardwood floors, for instance, is ripped up because people want the hardwood floors. They're creeped out by other people's carpeting. Okay? No, seriously, they don't want to.
I believe it.
Then you'll get into the potential fast, easy, and inexpensive value adds when you look at kitchens and bathrooms. I am famous for updating kitchens and bathrooms. Now, the key word here is update, not renovated, right? But updated is a great buzzword. Again, whether you are, whether you're advertising, 30 new units with updated kitchens and bathrooms, that doesn't mean a full-scale renovation. That means that you've updated, potentially the vanities and the hardware and the faucets and the shower heads and the mirrors and the lighting. That's a fraction of the cost of what it would be for a full-scale renovation. Or in an older home, maybe you grew up with the, blue and brown tile in the bathroom. I know I did. We had a blue bathtub upstairs. But today, there are so many ways that you can change that visual by, what's that called? I'm having a senior moment at 8:00 in the morning. When you reglaze the tile so everything is white, that's what people want.
Yeah. I've seen that too, or we've looked at homes or even units or apartment communities and they'll have that tub, like you say, that's pink. It's like, oh my goodness. How, there's not too many ways that we can fix this.
Except that a buyer needs to know that they need to buy the physical structure that is sound, that shows opportunity. So again, there's a big difference between delayed maintenance and value add. If you see cracks in the foundation, obviously that's going to give you pause when you're looking at a home or at units. But let's assume that the delayed maintenance is taken care of, because in today's market, you can't compete if the delayed maintenance is not a given, meaning if you haven't addressed all of those issues that will then, fail an inspection. So, the book that I recently wrote, that I felt I had to write, because again, I'm a truth teller with a strategic plan, called Smart Moves, How to Save Time and Money While Transitioning Your Home and Life, has 2 checklists that are critical when packaging property to sell. Again, commercial, residential. The first is an interior checklist, and the second is an exterior checklist that makes sure that you are presenting an asset that is going to check off all the boxes that these unrealistic buyers are looking for. And a large part of it is visual. I mean, as we've talked about, you've heard of people who walk into a home or walk into a unit and go, okay, this is it. And you say, wait a minute, you don't even know how many bedrooms are here. It doesn't matter. It's a feeling. So my niche is figuring out what that feeling is for that particular buyer in that particular location at that particular price point, and speaking to it, making the changes that ding their chimes. And so they say, wow, this is it.
Is there a specific color of paint that's the most popular right now that we should be considering in our units as we're trying to rent them?
I don't know what other people do, but there aren't many people in my particular space, but there's a lot of white. I love Benjamin Moore's Simply White. It is not hospital white. It's a soft white that can be paired with a straight white, like a ceiling white or a white dove trim, and there is differentiation. I think that if the grays are still classic gray. Benjamin Moore's classic gray is still very popular. There are a lot of white taupey tones that are still very popular. People want a clean palette. I just left my own home that I sold in 8 days for top dollar for full price, and it originally was a kaleidoscope of color, because that's what I created for myself and my kids. But I was smart enough, obviously, to know when I went to sell it, it all had to be neutral, all of it, including the carpet. I mean, there was zero personality in the house. Well, that's not to say there was no personality. It just was a specific personality geared toward the buyer. It wasn't my particular taste, but the changes we made spoke immediately to that buyer. They want to move in and create their own life. Mm-hmm. And white or gray or pale taupe walls may not be their thing, or a neutral carpet may not be their thing, but what they believe is that they will change it over time. They're not living with your stylized, seller-specific choices. And I think that's what they're looking for today.
When it's neutral, they can visualize themselves what they would do more so than this big, bright orange wall or something that they may hate.
Well, that's right, because what that represents, and again, even in commercial, what that represents is time and money that they have to spend to create a situation where they can move in and do nothing for 1 year. That's really my gold standard, is does the listing present so that a potential buyer can purchase the property and make little to no change for 1 year. When you've created that situation, then you're ready to list. Anything less than that in today's market is just begging to be devalued, because we really are visual creatures and we will assess value based on what we see. We see standing water, we are literally running for the nearest exit.
Yeah.
You know, there are a whole list of things that turn us off immediately. Odor that we can't put our fingers on. Oh boy. No, it's true.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it. I believe it. No doubt. Any other major differences or similarities, in getting a property ready for sale, or whether it's commercial or residential?
Yeah, I think that we talk a lot about the emotionality of our decision making with residential. And even though I seem to be in a crowd of one who's talked about this for 15 years, we can't discount it on the commercial side. Because again, we are human and our senses help us to make these critical decisions, whether or not we're going to purchase an apartment. We say it's based on a feeling, but the feeling is really, it's really the consensus of all of our senses saying this is a good buy. It's not just the numbers on a spreadsheet, whether or not this makes sense financially. It's about how we're relating to this property and if we see possibility. So I think that we can't discount our very human emotion and the backstory that's always going on in the back of our minds. And if you have, several people, obviously, who are looking to purchase a property, you're dealing with that many individuals' own histories and their, what they think and see and feel and how they're processing. And all of that affects our decision making. And I think that it bears mentioning so that we don't see a potential good deal go sideways because of something that we're relating to in our past.
Yeah, I know we've said it a couple times, but just the emotional component is just so big.
It's huge, and people don't know where to start. That's the question I think that I'm asked the most over the last 15 years is, okay, I've made the decision to sell. Where do I start? What do I do? Who do I believe? Okay, because as you know, today with the advent of podcasts and the internet, everybody's an expert today.
Right.
And I, again, wrote the book to demystify the process of both selling and moving. It's not rocket science. What gets in the way most of the time is the seller themselves, because they will come up with a budget in their mind. If, during the assessment, during the consultation, and you're doing the internal and external assessment, and they say, well, you know what, I think about $20,000 is right to be able to make the updates. And I'll say to them, well, where did that figure come from? Well, it's what I think is fair. You see, so it's all about emotion.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with, and I'll say, so have you collected before our meeting today? Have you collected the have you collected the estimates of all the work that's going to need to be done? Well, no. It's just what, it's what my wife and I think is fair. So again, this emotional component can really, really hang you up at every part in the process. How about moving? Everybody wants to save money. It's all about money, right? How many horror stories have you heard with people who, tried to save money and ended up not receiving their goods, or their goods were
Right.
hijacked, or doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough where I was prompted, but by my clients also, but to say to people, and this is not a warm and fuzzy book, but to say to people, stop. You don't know what you don't know, right? Here's what you need to know in this transition space.
Hmm. What about any other, I know you mentioned a couple, but any other like red flags or things that are just going to turn a potential tenant or a potential buyer, for the exit?
Oh, I think that those are easy. Rodents, rat boxes, especially in commercial buildings. You see rat boxes everywhere, but actual evidence of rodents, the odor, feces, urine, shredded insulation in older homes, also odor of grease and cooking spices, and big delayed maintenance issues like a busted boiler, HVAC, big dollar items, roof issues. Even in residential real estate, I suggest cleaning a roof, whether it's power washing a newer roof, okay, that's stained because it's, under big, huge trees, or hand washing an older slate roof. Because again, visually, I'm not saying I'm not a roofer and I stay in my lane, but as long as it doesn't leak, my job is to, again, create those fast, easy, and inexpensive updates. And what you see from the curb or the exterior, it's the same with a building. That matters. What can I do? Am I power washing the brick and the siding? So let's see what else. Oh, old wall-to-wall stinky carpet. The plush carpet.
Yeah.
that runs the second floor of many homes. If it's covering hardwood floors, rip it up. Install the shoe molding. People would rather see the value in your floors. They don't want your old carpet.
Yeah.
The same is true in commercial. Replace the carpet. It is a fraction of what the next price reduction will be. We talked about standing water. Standing water is terrifying for people. Plumbing that doesn't work. There are a lot of them.
Yeah. Wow.
There are a lot of, really apparent things that people pick up on that make them run to the nearest exit.
All right, Caroline. Well, just a few final questions before we run
Sure.
out of time. But is there a way that you have recently improved your business that we could apply to ours?
Well, I am right now in transition. I've just moved to Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, which was on my bucket list and part of my 5-year plan. As my littlest one went off to college, I sort of followed him down 95 from Maryland and kept going. I'm in the process of transitioning the business to have more of an online presence where I can serve the clients that need me, anyone transitioning a property and moving to the next, where I can serve larger numbers of people, where I can educate on a larger scale for the people that are interested and or need it. And doing that is very challenging because I'm used to, dealing with people on a day-to-day basis and meeting them and shaking their hands. And this whole online platform seems a little sterile to me. I know that I'm still connecting and helping people, but it just feels differently than my business in Maryland. But I'm really excited about it because it means reaching larger numbers of people who will benefit from the last 15 years of experience.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
That's a great question. Probably necessity. I'm a single mom with 3 kids and had to figure it out very early on. I hadn't worked outside the home for 12 years and thought, what is the one thing I'm good at that I could monetize? And I thought, I create order out of chaos. That's what I do.
That's a good skill to have.
It's a good skill to have. And I backed into real estate as the medium or the vertical in which I'm able to exercise this passion too. So I've been very lucky in that. But of course, my 3 children are the driving force behind. Before I even found my voice in this vertical, it was all about my kids.
And tell us how you like to give back.
I am a big believer in supporting the Best Buddies community. And I also love to teach. I teach anywhere, everywhere. If given the opportunity, I'm a truth teller, and I love to be able to empower others who are not comfortable in this space, who are looking for a cheat sheet, who say, just give me the basics. I'm not as much of a hand holder as I am, here's the plan. You're definitely not going to be able to convert everyone, but for those that are interested, and there are a lot, who want a clear strategic plan. Where do I spend my time and money? I don't want to lose my cool here. We both work outside the home, or this is a side hustle for us. Just tell me what to do. So, I've been very fortunate in that.
Wow. Well, Caroline, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate your time this morning early, and just honored to have you on the show, and we're just grateful for just taking us through those, just like some top updates that we need to consider: paint, carpet, tile, lighting, those things that can be somewhat more inexpensive, right? And maybe
absolutely
not just kill our
budget. But they
budget.
make a huge visual impact.
Right. And then just thinking through that emotional component and how important that is, and those top red flags that just send tenants or buyers, running for the door. So just grateful for that. Tell the listeners, though, how they can get in touch with you, and again, where they can find your book.
Sure. It's very easy to get in touch with me, and I'd love to hear from you. The website is carolinecarter.com, CARTER. You can email me directly at caroline@carolinecarter.com. The book, Smart Moves, How to Save Time and Money While Transitioning Your Home and Life, is available on Amazon, both in ebook and paperback form. And I'm on all social media. So I would absolutely love to hear from any of your listeners if I can be of service to them.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.